Howdy, Professor B. I hope you're having a blessed week. And I'm here to give you my presentation over what I did my hours on for church and community and social work. And it went into a lot of thought, but when I did this, I was really excited because I had been a part of something like this, but I'd never actually worked with something like this. And what I did was I did an FCA camp called Weekend of Champions that they do once a year at this time, where they bring all types of kids from all over the state of Texas and put them in one spot. And when you get there, you really don't know what to think because you're like, okay, am I just helping make the camp? Am I going to be a leader? What am I going to get any kids? What am I going to do? And in reality, you're sewing into kids and you have no idea because when you get there, they're like, you're assigned to this cabin. You're a huddle leader of all of these kids. Make sure they're here on time. Make sure that all of your ducks in rows. Make sure all of your ducks and arrows are in rows, however that goes. But before I start rambling on, it was a great experience, and I stand by the fact that you might be the only Bible kids ever read. You might be the only Bible a person might ever see, and which means that's a great responsibility. Which leads me into why the FCA is such a huge thing for kids. Because if you can get kids in church automatically, don't matter their home life, the situations they're going through at school, their sports, anything, if you can reach kids through the power of Christ, it'll change their life. And I mean that. It's done wonder. God has done wonders in my life. Christ has done wonders in my life, and on so many levels. But back to the presentation. It was a camp, not camp. It was the FCA was. It stands for Fellowship of Christian Athletes, like I've said. But it was developed and made in the mind of the great Don McCallum. He was an athlete. He was an athlete and coach in the 40s and 50s. You know, he was actually born in 1925, and he passed away here recently, a few years ago, at the age of 95, I believe. Great man of God. But his whole thing was he kept seeing athletes getting portrayed as getting money for like deodorant deals, cigarette deals, anything on TV that was negatively portrayed, but he never seen a Christian athlete on TV, which was a huge thing. He's like, why can't Christian athletes advertise their faith towards Jesus Christ and their resounding everything towards him? And he really set that in motion. And how he set that in motion was it all came about finally after all the praying, all the hours sewed into it in 1956 at Estes Park in Colorado. But during that 7-year span, he wasn't the only one. Dr. Lewis H. Evans, Roe Johnston, and Branch Rickey were also a part of it. There was many more people involved, but that core group right there was the reason that FCA is what it is to this day. And the population, back to the camp, now that you have the history aspect, the population that's served at a micro level is once you get there, you become a huddle leader, which means you're in a cabin with 3 other people that are huddle leaders, at least 32 to 40 kids, and you have to sew into these kids. So you have to get them to their games that they have to do, but you have to make sure they make it to lunch and chapel on time. With food, that's not really hard with kids. They're going to get there. They're going to eat. You know what I'm saying? But when it comes to chapel, some of them feel it, some of them don't. And it's one of those things when they experience it, it'll some of them it changes their life, and that's the whole idea behind it. Because they said this to us straight out, and it means so much, and it stuck with me in my heart to this day. They may not remember the worship music, the speaker, or anything that happened, or maybe even not even the games, but they'll remember their huddle leader. And that always stuck with me, and I tried to be the best role model I could for these kids. At a macro level, it's all of the kids. But at a semi-small macro level, when you're just talking about the cabin that you're in, all 4 people, which so happen to be me and 3 other of my teammates, which we all play football, really sewed into these kids, and they bit into it because they really were attracted to the idea that college football players took time out of their busy schedule to spend time with us, and that was really big for them. And you might be there to make an impact on their life, but 9 times out of 10, and I venture to say 10 times out of 10, kids make an impact on your life. And that is huge for me, because there was so many kids there that had issues at home that I could just relate to, because I'd been there, I'd done that, I'd wore the shirt, I did all of it that these kids were struggling through, and I would have given anything to have a male role model like the male role models that we were being for these kids when I was their age, because I relate to them. Single parent home, dad was nowhere to be seen. Thank God I had my grandparents, but the dad figure hurts sometimes when you don't have that there. But I was really happy that these kids were there. Requirements to be a huddle leader. Like I said, get them there on time, get them to their games, make sure that you regurgitate whatever the chapel is, because once chapels are over, you have to sit down and you have to speak to the kids again. And once you speak to the kids, it's basically open discussion. And once open discussion happens, the gears turn, and these kids are just great kids, and they just want to share everything they got with you that they can. The role of the church, it's Fellowship of Christian Athletes. It's a very big deal. And the vision of the agency is to reach every coach and athlete in the world. It is one of the most worldwide known agencies when it comes to Christianity, when it comes into sports. And if they can reach as many people as they can, they're going to do it. And I'll end on this. When it comes to Don McKenna, the president of FCA said this: if there's ever a question about what God can do with a life totally surrendered, called and risked all to follow his vision, he can point to a young basketball coach from Oklahoma who in 1954 saw potential of athletes and coaches to share the gospel with the world. And that stuck with me, and I'm so happy that FCA is going as strong as it can, and I hope it keeps growing, and it's something that I will be doing for as long as I possibly can while I reside at SAGU. Thank you, and God bless.